I'm Francis Baek Dong-hum. I'm from South Korea. Driving taxi requires self-control. Taxi driving is essential to get up early in the morning. Early morning is very, very big job, good job. Eh? Oh, good morning. I have been worked for Kia Motors company for 13 years. My major is mechanics and design in university. I worked for car designing, layout. I was very, very busy. 7 days, Monday to Sunday. There was no my time for my life. Since I settled in New Zealand, I have been living in joy and peace. I prayed to God, and then I was responded to drive a taxi. I came here for my children's education. I wanted to have time with my family. After come to New Zealand, our family have lots of time with my God. I am writing a column, New Zealand Korean Times, looking at New Zealand from my taxi. When I heard a call for taxi from the foyer of Auckland Hospital, an old lady appeared. I approached to her and offered her my arm. I did not hold her arm to support her. It was her who walked to taxi by placing her hand on my arm. People can be at ease when they are treated at their level. I should have formed a habit so that my thoughts, sayings, and actions are one. That's why I come to like the following sayings. The longest journey in the world is from the lips to the heart.
My name is Bab. I'm an immigrant from Bangladesh. This is not my real profession. This is not what I wanted to do. I didn't come to New Zealand as an immigrant to do this. BSc degree in agriculture from Bangladesh, postgrad education in England, postgrad diploma in agricultural engineering, and then I did my master's in agriculture as well. I spent at least half of my career in agricultural projects with governments, non-governmental organizations, United Nations, private organizations, business organizations like those. But last 10 years, just prior to coming to New Zealand, I was into advertising industry and communications as well. I looked at the information available for those countries who have normal immigration programs. So I thought New Zealand would be better than any other countries. Now the immigration service is recognizing my qualifications, whereas the employers are not recognizing my qualifications. I really don't understand it. In most of the reject letters, I was told that we got a better candidate, you don't quite match. So it's towards Dominion Road, isn't it? Some people say, well, you are overqualified. It's a New Zealand way of lying, This is the New Zealand way of saying that you are good for nothing. I didn't think it was going to be so bad. I think a lot of people show sympathy about not getting jobs, and they even sometimes show their dissatisfaction about what is happening between this New Zealand Immigration Service. I took 2 young guys from Viaduct to Hillsborough, and it was raining, and they just asked me to stop by the BP station at the corner of Hillsborough and Richardson Road, and they just ran away. And they kicked here, then kicked this one as well, and then just ran away. Not many passengers, but too many taxis. So, driving taxi is a fascinating thing, like if I have one driven taxi in New Zealand, I don't know so much about the life of New Zealanders, especially what they think, their attitude, their outlook about life and other aspects, So they asked me if I can play some music on the radio, so my radio is out of order at that moment. I said, sorry, I don't have my radio working, but I have a tape, I don't know whether you are going to like it. So I just put the tape on. And as soon as he heard that, he was very angry. He said, why are you playing this music? You are not supposed to be playing this music. This is all rubbish, He was trying to say that I should have played an English music. And I said, excuse me, this is music, and I don't think music has a country barrier or language. It's universal. Any music is good for any country. And then, he mentioned to me that, he asked me, you better go away from this country. I said, look, this is my country too. Then his girlfriend joined him, and she said, no, this is not your country. Don't talk bullshit. So, this is one bad experience about the music. I've got 2 sons living with me here. I'm a solo dad. I certainly need a good job in my own industry. A good job will take me anywhere, in this world. I don't care whether it's my original country I come from or anywhere else in the world.
Deep drum beats, airy flute notes, the high twang of a sitar.
She liked Annie's soft eyes and face, the way she listened and laughed and helped her with anything.
From May 15th to 18th, writers from around the world gathered at the Hyatt Hotel for the Auckland Writers and Readers Festival. A number of Asian authors were represented, though none of them now live in Asia. Anita Rao Badami's novel, The Hero's Walk, won the Commonwealth Regional Prize.
If I had lived in India, I might not have been able to see it. I'm separated both spatially and temporally from that country, so I look at it differently. As long as I was living there, I saw it in terms of daily news. I didn't necessarily see all the stories that were unfolding around me all the time. I don't want to let go of my past, my history, the land I came from. And at the same time, I don't want to let go of the place I'm living in now, which is Canada. So, Canada and India are always fighting inside of me.
Do you want to tell
Filmmaker Dai Sijie is originally from China, but now lives in France.
C'est une province de 150 millions d'habitants.
It's a small province with only 150 million inhabitants.
His first novel, Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress, has been translated into many languages and made into a film which he directed.
I
wrote these books because I wanted to see how good my French was. I was working in the movies and I wanted to apply for French citizenship, and I asked myself, would my French be good enough to write some books? And I felt that if it was good enough, then I could apply for French citizenship, so I wrote the books.
J'aurais voulu écrire en chinois, mais
frankly, I would have liked to write in Chinese, but I know that it is very difficult to get published. And I felt that if I wanted to be published, I really would have to use another language, so French was the language I used.
For Linda, anyway.
The panel entitled Chinese Takeaways included Asia Down Under's own Linda Chenwai Earl and Sándor Lau, as well as the University of Otago's 2002 Robert Burns Fellow, Alison Wong.
I'm writing a historical novel. I'm writing the novel from many perspectives, Chinese and New Zealand, European. And I think probably the easiest characters for me to write are the Pākehā female characters. I have to go back to a culture that is a bit removed from me in terms of the Chinese side of it.
Anita Rao Badami also grew up in a country with British colonial history.
The books that I was introduced to as a child were mostly British authors. But around the age of 13, a neighbor actually gave me a copy of a book by R.K. Narayan. And that was the first time I was reading a book. It was a proper novel written by an Indian writer, and it had Indian characters. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I want to do this, you know. That was the first time I was reading a book with people who I knew.
Obviously, you know, I probably get attention because I'm Chinese and there's not many New Zealand Chinese writers. And that's both a pro and a con, because, you know, what I can write is possibly a bit different from a lot of other New Zealanders, so maybe there's more interest.
I know sometimes the truth hurts people. So there's something curiously hard-hearted about telling the truth when it is going to be hurting somebody. But sometimes I think it's necessary to confront the truth in a situation and to talk about it in a book. For me, there's never anything that's entirely wrong or entirely right. I don't see things in, you know, black and white.
If I have a dream as a writer, well, it is to write a book in Chinese. I want to publish in Beijing. I want the book to be officially available. I want my parents to be able to buy it at the book rather than go look for what I've written on the black market.
He started reading the book the very same night that Four Eyes lent it to us and reached the end at dawn, when he put out the oil lamp and passed the book on to me. I stayed in bed until nightfall without food, completely wrapped up in the story of love and miracles.
I think a lot of people don't know what I am.
There's this kind of desire for people to find out, to locate someone like me.
I think they're not used to seeing people who don't look normal to them.
On a global level, you're actually an internationalist, you're actually the majority.
According to Statistics New Zealand's most recent figures, 1/10 of New Zealand Asians are of mixed race. That's about 24,000 people.
I'm half Chinese and half European, Eurasian. Probably the best thing about being mixed is that you get to create your own identity. I think that's one of the things that I find. You can be whatever you want. You can take the best things out of each of the cultures and I think just create, you know, your own individual personality and background, which is quite unique to a lot of people I know.
Qiujing's cousin Jamie was New Zealand's 2002 under-11 girls diving champion.
Jamie Qiujing Wong Rodriguez. I'm half Filipino and half Chinese.
She's one of less than 1% of mixed Asians whose heritage comes from 2 different Asian countries.
When I'm with my Chinese family and we're having dinner together, I feel a lot more Chinese because there's only my dad there and he blends in with the family really well. There's lots of people talking Chinese around us and we're eating Chinese food.
About 13% of mixed Asians are also Pacific Islanders.
This is Shaden Sophie Vincent Ayik Strickson-Pua, and his lineage is really interesting. It's of English, Samoan, and Chinese. And I'm Mua Strickson-Pua, Aotearoa-born Samoan Chinese poet. There's often a very strong push for monocultural, ideological identity sort of perception. So there's real pressure on people of mixed heritage to choose one. And it's a painful process because it's at the cost of another.
9% of mixed Asians are mixed with Māori only, and another 19% are mixed Asian, Māori, and another group.
I'm Māori Chinese Pākehā. When I was a little kid growing up, lots of people would ask me, you know, what are you? And my kind of standard answer for that would be, I'm a New Zealander. People were still wanting to know, yeah, okay, you're a New Zealander, but where are you really from? Or where's your mum from? Or those sorts of questions came up. So it was kind of like I was still a mysterious figure to them or something. Personally, I would never go up to anyone and say, oh, what are you? Or where are you from? Or in that, you know, such a direct way.
Charles Joe is Mei-Lin's uncle.
I'm glad to be who I am, Chinese, Māori and Scots. When I was 21 years old, I would probably have felt that I was more Chinese at that time, mainly because of our upbringing. We grew up in a market garden. We had friends who were Chinese who owned market gardens themselves, went to school with Chinese friends. The best man at my wedding was a Chinese person. But with my vocational experience as a church minister, I probably see myself as being Māori. But the older that I'm getting, I think I'm looking more Chinese.
People come up to me in nightclubs and ask me if I'm Eskimo, Hawaiian, Maori, Samoan.
I've been Portuguese, Samoan.
European, part European.
Some people have said that maybe I'm Filipino.
As a university student, Mua was asked to participate in a Chinese basketball tournament. The opposing team told him he was ineligible.
I said, why? And they pointed out to me, you have to be Chinese to be in this tournament. And then I went, well, then I qualified. My grandmother's Chinese, my father is of Chinese descent, and so am I. To which there was this rather embarrassed look. They quickly turned around and went, oh, well, then of course you'll take part.
When my grandfather died, we gave him a Māori Christian funeral, so he had a tangi. Despite the fact that I think he was actually Buddhist. So we had this tangi, and then at the burial, so it was 3 days, you know, with the body in the house, and then at his burial, his Chinese relations, my relations, performed a kind of a ceremony. They burnt joss sticks and they had cooked food there, and they threw rice and gave out money, and I kind of clicked that this is also part of who I am, and felt at once very Chinese, or not very Chinese, I felt Chinese, but I also noticed that there's a huge distance between me and what my relations were doing.
Over time, the Europeans have led the rest of the world in their ways of, you know, women pursuing their careers more so than probably a lot of other cultures. So they're ahead of everyone else in that respect. And I've been brought up to be very career-driven. That's a huge focus for me, and education as well. So the fact that I have a mother who's also very career-driven has been one of the reasons why I guess I've ended up that way. Now, on the other hand, I have a Chinese family which believes in, you know, keeping the extended family unit together. We'll meet for ceremonies where it's time to celebrate the death of my grandfather. So we'll go out to the cemetery as a group, we'll visit the grave, we'll put flowers there, and we'll all bow to the grave 3 times. Now that's a Chinese ceremony that I don't know any Europeans would do.
Well, I think we had the privilege of actually being with Dad and with Mum. We had the privilege of hearing them speak the language to their family and friends on both sides. We've seen them work very hard. Their work ethics, you know, what they installed in us really was to value each other and the family.
People might say, oh, Asians are really rich, they're really clever, they work hard, they, you know, they drive badly. And at those moments, I feel like it's, I don't know, something happens and I want to support the Chinese side.
I think as a grandparent, we tried to put into place the mobility and the space and, you know, that sacredness for our children to know where they come from in terms of their grandparents' lineage and in terms of those sacred places in China, Samoa, England, so that for the children, they have the history and the background to choose who they wish to identify with.
With half of mixed-race Asians under the age of 15, it seems likely these faces are bound to become the rule rather than the exception, and redefine everyone's concept of what's normal.
Dad, I remember the pain when you spoke of your childhood, how some were so cruel about your Chinese ancestry. You would be so proud of your Chinese English Samoan grandson. Shaden Sufi is built like a Polynesian with olive complexion, English features and beautiful Chinese eyes. May the pain be released, the dreams and the hope finally realized for this Aotearoa Samoan Chinese poet. We move together into the future, celebrating our shared humanity, peace, and aroha.
2003 marks the 35th New Zealand International Film Festival, which just began in Auckland. Now, this year's festival brings in over 100 new feature films and nearly as many shorts and animations, most of which will have their only New Zealand screenings here at the festival. It's called an international festival for a reason, and over 20 of these films are either by or about Asians. Here's a quick peek at some of what's on. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress is the story of two city boys sent to the country for re-education in 1970s China. I never thought I'd use these two phrases together, but the film is like a fairy tale of the Cultural Revolution. Like with any fairy tale, the rules are made to be broken, so the repression of the Cultural Revolution serves to heighten the boys' guilty pleasures. Filmmaker Dai Sijie originally trained as a curator of paintings, and that training really shows through in the film, which bears more resemblance to the paintings of the Dutch masters than to Chinese brushstrokes. Dai moved to France as a university student, and the film's based on his book, which he wrote in French. So despite being shot on location in China, it's a French production with a very European flavor. A lot of South Korean films tend to feel like Hollywood with Korean characters painted in, which is why it's such a pleasure to see Oasis, a new film from Lee Chang-dong. The main character, Jong-do, has just been released from prison and dedicates his time to losing jobs and wiping his nose when he meets his princess with cerebral palsy, Gongju, the daughter of a man he killed in a car accident. The film's shot verite style, entirely handheld with minimal lighting and long, lingering takes, which lend tremendous sympathy to the main characters, who are both played with amazing grace. It's easy to see why Moon So-ri won Best Actress and Lee Best Director at the Venice Film Festival in 2002. Oasis is definitely one of my favorite films this year. Now, the festival does feature its fair share of death and destruction, much of which is contained in the Hong Kong action thriller Infernal Affairs. It's a Shakespearean triad film noir about Andy Lau, a cop who's actually a gangster, and Tony Leung, a gangster who's actually a cop. Like any good film noir, it's more about character than plot, with the two leads chasing each other in a sort of ballet of bullets and wits. The film's impeccably slick and looks and feels more like an ad than a feature film at times. The high production values really distinguish Infernal Affairs, and it's made such a splash that there's talk of a Hollywood remake with Brad Pitt. So if you'd like to taste the real yum char and not the McYum Char burger, grab it now while you still can. Also from Korea comes Chihwa Sung, a new film from Im Kwon-taek. It's a costume drama set in the late 19th century about the life of painter Chang Sung-up, later known as Oh Wan. The story's like an instruction manual on how to be a tortured artist. Make great paintings, gain fame and fortune, drink, womanize, make enemies, repeat. The film's impeccably sculpted, and it's a fascinating historical document, not only on painting, but but on the period's architecture, clothing, and history. Chi Hwa-sung can feel a bit candy-coated at times, but it's a far cry from seeing the Korean butler in James Bond films, and a fascinating view into a country that more and more New Zealanders have ties with. The festival begins in Wellington July 18th, then tours the rest of the country through the winter and the spring. If you'd like to know more, check out the website at www.nzff.co.nz. I'll see you there.
The best thing about having a beard was when I was about 16 years old. My friends used to send me down to the local liquor shop to get some liquor, and because all of them looked 16 or 15, nobody bothered to ask me for any ID.
Decided to grow my beard when I was 19. At the time I was young, and I tried to be artistic, and also, try to do something that normally people don't do.
I'm a Muslim, and having a beard is one of the sunnah, one of the, how the Prophet appeared. This is what we feel that he appeared. And as a Muslim, I must emulate the Prophet because we believe, the Muslims, that he was the perfect man.
You're not allowed to cut your hair. We're supposed to be a warrior race. When the Sikhs were first actually baptized as such, we were supposed to have long flowing beards and a turban, and we were supposed to wear bangles and so on and so forth, so that we could stand out in a field of war, because it was very hard to differentiate who was a Muslim and who was a Sikh. Basically a really scary looking attire to sort of, intimidate the enemy.
What is this look like? Eh?
Daddy.
Right. People actually is quite against it, especially some of my older generation in the family. They didn't say no, Philip, no, I'm gonna cut it. They don't say it, but they always persuade me cut it. Having beard long is for the respected older people, right? And then they don't want me to look older than my grandpa.
I have to, with my shower, sometimes use, some shampoo, so that the hair is soft, so my wife doesn't complain. Generally, what Sikhs do with long flowing beards, longer than mine, is they have a special brush, a beard brush, and they'll brush it. They'll brush it down, and they will tie it at the bottom here that you see, and they'll put a cloth on it, and then they hair dry it. I know some people in my family that take about half an hour just on the beard.
There is a great emphasis in Islam on cleanliness. In Arabic, we call it tahara, to keep clean and pure, both spiritually, mentally, physically. We pray 5 times a day. So 5 times a day, we're supposed to wash our face, and you're supposed to, run your fingers through the beard and clean it thoroughly, so that the roots get wet,
When I go to get my driving test, it's quite a serious thing, for me, And I cut all my beard tidy, wearing tie jackets to go to get my driving test. And the driving instructor came in, and he's big beard. So I think there's no point, actually, to cut it. So I since that, I just be myself,
One of the disadvantages is looking too mature. One time, I was in the passenger seat. My friend was driving, and there was this girl at the drive-thru that knew my friend and said, "Hey Sid, how you doing?" And Sid's like, "Yeah, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you." And she sort of looks over at me at the passenger seat. She goes, "Also, is that your dad, Sid?" And Sid's like, "Yeah, that's my dad." And it was very embarrassing because Sid's my age.
people who don't like Muslims or like the look of, because I dress like this, I appear like this. So they must have, here's a Muslim fundamentalist, right? Let's go and do something about it. I mean, I can't say now who did this, right? There must be some local guy who's obviously must be a Christian, probably not practicing as a Christian, so I can't call him this a Christian terrorist, right? But I feel sorry for the person who did it. In fact, I prayed for him, that God give him guidance, I'm inviting him to, he doesn't have to come and tell me who he is, it's just that he heard about me or something. Come and have a cup of tea with me,
It was a Friday evening. People were in a good, festive mood, and I was taking the order for a particular table, and this particular guy, this young gentleman, comes across to me and sort of taps me on the shoulder, and I look around and he goes, where are you hiding Saddam Hussein? And I'm sort of shocked, and I'm going, oh, yeah, Saddam Hussein. Sort of thought for a while, judged the situation. I said, well, I think he's in your mum's bedroom. You want to go have a look?
I don't think I'm going to shave it completely. I just maybe trim it short, And because now I enjoy it, it's been so many years now. I really, if I shave it, I probably cannot recognize myself.
No, never. And if I was given another life, given the present knowledge, even that period of a few months that I shaved, I would not shave. I'll just be like that forever.
No, I don't think so. Apart from being, the religious aspect of it, I think I enjoy standing out too much. I mean, I love walking into a room where all eyes are on me, and I'd actually advise it. Maybe you want to grow a beard.
This week on Asia Down Under, students and businesses hit by a phone card company collapse. A pharmacist with an holistic approach to healthcare. And a potter who takes inspiration from nature.
Phone cards are big business and a cheap way to make overseas calls. Many cards target specifically Asian markets, but the recent collapse of SMT Communications has seen the value of SmartLink, Greater China, and Kiwi cards go up in smoke, with many consumers and retailers losing out.
I would like to contact my families in China. I dial the number as usual, but there is nothing. I can't hear anything. I only use probably $2 to $3. So I lost about $40 to $41, $42, something like that.
Lizier Lee manages the tofu shop in Albany on Auckland's North Shore.
That day, the salesperson called us and was basically telling us the company in Australia is went bankrupt. But he assured us that there's nothing wrong with a New Zealand company, and we're still able to sell the card. But a few hours later, in the afternoon, the main office of Tofu Shop called us and told us not to sell at all. We obviously losing money, of course, because we still have about 10 to 12 cards, and it's between $10, $20, and $50 cards, and we already pay for it.
Some shops have lost up to $8,000 after being offered highly discounted cards in bulk, just days before the cards stopped working. This is the Auckland office building where SMT Communications was registered to Mr. David Huang. Now there's mail still stacking up for him in the lobby, and his former landlord claims he left while still owing rent. Attempts to contact David Huang through his lawyer in Australia were unsuccessful. Kevin Day manages Chitel, another phone card company.
I think the telltale signs for the dealers was probably when they received a letter saying that if they paid up quickly, they could get a higher discount on the next order. I think that set the alarm bells running or ringing with a number of them, but unfortunately not with enough of them, and a lot of the dealers did lose a lot of money. Do I think something like this will happen again? I would say I'm sure it will. I don't know when and I don't know who, but this is a very, very competitive marketplace.
Complaints have been made to the Consumer Institute and the Commerce Commission, but David Huang's business is not currently under investigation.
We have in Parliament tightened up the Companies Act. You find that people who are, directors of the company, if they are intentionally knowing that a company is in trouble, for example, continue to trade, incur more debts, or selling the stock off when they know that they shouldn't, they actually can be charged and can sentenced to jail, pay damages under the Companies Act. But what we need is people come forward with evidence or with what their suspicions. So people can do that through either police, or you can approach a member of parliament. Then we can look at individual cases, or in a serious case where serious fraud office would also get involved.
Dr. Greg Newbold, a sociologist at Canterbury University, estimates that New Zealand may lose 40 times as much through white-collar crime as through other types of crime. If you've been burned, you can contact the Commerce Commission or the police to make a complaint.
I'm passionate about. I think films are the most powerful.
Storytelling means that
I see it as a really accessible medium.
They talk about a place.
We're 4 young Asian artists who have got together to put on the Inaugural Asia Film Festival Aotearoa. There are 2 very strong festivals which have been going on for numerous years now. The San Francisco International Asian American Film Festival and the Sydney Asia Pacific Film Festival. Both of those festivals came about because they wanted to form strong community bridges between Asian and non-Asian populations. The major objective of our festival is to bring different strands of communities in Auckland together.
我爱你，我爱你，我爱你，我爱你，我爱你，我爱你。
I've been here since I was 11 years old, and I have a master in English literature. But when people walk up to me, they will still ask me, which language school do you go to? And what we're trying to say with our festival is, hey, we're just like everyone else. We believe that the Asian communities are not going to a lot of the arts or festival events. It's not a language barrier problem, but it's more to do with information accessibility. So what we're trying to do is link up with all the ethnic communities and to get our word out there, get the information across, so they will just come along just like the rest of the communities. I think the taste or the flavor of our festival is going to be very different from the usual one, because what we're trying to achieve is to bring in more dimensions of films or varieties that will come into that will be in the festival. Let's say that we bring in the films from the film circus, like film festival circus, as well as local, country of origins, locals, box office hits, films that are popular in their own countries.
Asia doesn't mean bad drivers and just educated people who come to New Zealand and unfortunately drive taxis or work in dairies. Asians are hardly portrayed in the media. They're not even given a chance to come up and say what they want to say, unless they say things that the mainstream media wants them to say. So those Asians who are there in the forefront, so-called forefront and representative, just say the things, just endorse the image that the Western media or the mainstream media wants them to endorse. With the film festival, we will be able to change at least a tad bit of the way people think about Asia, because the films that we are getting are sort of cutting edge, different kind of films that talk about different aspects of Asia.
A couple of months ago, I was walking down Queen Street and I found an Asian girl being harassed by two elderly Caucasian men. It was a bit sad because they were telling this Asian girl to go home, go back to where she came from. And as she tried to protest, no one was willing to help her. All people just stood around watching. She got quite distressed, and finally she managed to put in her few words, and in perfect Kiwi English, she said, "I'm home. I was born here." To which the two gentlemen replied in quite lilting Scottish and Irish accents. The festival is designed to be able to bridge gaps, to educate. I think that's where we're failing. Because at the end of the day, when you've got a good film and you're able to tell stories about Asians and their lives, we can show that the Asians, they live, they breathe, they love, they have sex, they die, they cry. They do all the things that we all do, that everyone does, and we're all the same.
The Asia Film Festival Aotearoa plays February 20th through 29th at Auckland's Sky City Theatre. For more info, check out filmwalks.co.nz.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.